Hello, today I thought we would do a vintage pretty sort of tag. I've got these MDF tags from Samantha Kay. There's two different sizes. The largest one is 15 centimetres top to bottom and the smallest is 10 centimetres top to bottom. I've also got these pretty little MDF butterflies. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use probably this nice vintage paper. It is double-sided. I've got pinks, dark pinks, some with leaves, some with a pattern and script on. This is nice because it's got little postage stamps on that say cherish, dream, believe, love, live, laugh, and then it's pretty on the back as well. So I may use some of those. I've also got these journaling cards, which are rather nice as well. They've sort of got a little bit of a sewing theme, but also just a vintage sort of vibe to them. There's the odd pair of scissors, but there's also one with a typewriter. All sorts of different ones. I've also got some vintage tea cards. These are Brooke Bond tea cards. I know Mum and Dad used to collect these, a lot of people did. They aren't as sought after as the cigarette cards, but they're still quite pretty, and these have a wildflower, yes, wildflower series. So I've got a few of those to choose from. Some are more dynamic than others, some are more sort of just interesting but not as bold as others. I've got a little bit of tea-stained linen, tea-stained ribbon, a journaling card, dictionary page, and some tea-stained paper. I don't know what I'm going to use at the moment, so I've got it all out just in case. This video is possibly going to be in 3 parts because I think it won't all fit onto one. So what I thought I'd do is I'll start with my butterflies, and I thought I'm going to cover them with the dictionary pages. I just think that'll be quite nice. So I'll get my PVA glue and a brush. So this one will, oh yes, that one works. I'm just going to put the PVA glue on the top, and then I'll just spread it out. Got it all over the sides, but it doesn't really matter, it won't show because it'll dry clear. As long as you get a good coating all over your butterfly. And then I'm just going to pop it onto my dictionary page. To do the next one. Probably I've got too much PVA on here, but I'm not going straight, I'm going at an angle, so I think it'll be a little bit more pleasing to the eye if the wording is at an angle. Right, so that's those. I'm going to set those aside to dry for a little bit, and then I'm going to move on to my tags. Now I've got an old credit card. Well, it was a Prime 30-day free trial card, just to make sure I don't get any air bubbles on here. And I think I'm going to do, let's see, which do I fancy? That's quite nice. I quite like that one. There. I might do them to match actually. So what I'll do is I'll just line this up so that I know I've got enough. It is just about the right size to cover this large tag. Get the surplus off. That's got a little bit of interest there, so we'll have that down the bottom. And I can cut that bit off as well. Save that for another time. So I'm going to, I could do this with matte medium or PVA, whatever. You don't have to use a brush, you could just do it on with the nozzle of the glue bottle. I'm just making sure it gets right to the edges. And then we'll go sure I get to the edge. And the bottom that it is completely covered. Go to press. This is where your credit card or brayer comes in. You can make sure there's no air bubbles in there by just pressing on. That's it. Set that aside. We'll do this one. It's been raining all day here today, but now the sun's come out, which is nice. And again, make sure you get right to the edges. Your PVA does sink in a little bit to your tag. Make sure I get it covered at all sides and the top. So. I'll let that dry a little bit as well. It's very pretty. Oh, nice little piece that's left. Now, what I'm going to do while I'm waiting for those to dry, I'm just going to cut out these. There's 4 postcards on here, and 6 stamps. So I'm just going to cut them out so that they are ready to use when I want. So you see, those are really pretty. It's got a bit of a pale edge which needs to come off. And what you can do as well, to add a bit more texture, is just rough the edges up. I do like doing this. You can get distressing tools, I just use the edge of my scissors. I do also like sometimes to add a bit of vintage photo to the edges as well, after I've roughed them up. So that looks a lot nicer. I will do the others. And I'll also do these little stamps. Now I'm not going to try and cut round the stamp where the little notches are on the edge. That wouldn't be sensible. Don't think I'd manage it. I think I'd probably just make a mess of it. So I'm just going to do them like that and then rough the edges up. This time I might leave the edges white. I'll see. So they're quite sweet just to pop in places as well. Now I think I'll do the rest of those later as I need them, but I think our little butterflies and our tags should be just about dry. So I'll just cut that off. Just roughly cut round them, just to get the excess away, and they're easier to deal with. Right, now I'm going to endeavour just to more or less cut round the outline of the butterfly. As you'll see in a moment, it doesn't matter if I'm perfect, because I'm going to finish them off. But if I just go more or less. The bigger ones will be easier. Right, I'm now going to get my sandpaper, which is just one of these little sanding blocks. I need a new one, it's getting very tatty, but it will work for now. And just very carefully sand around the edges. And this just neatens up your butterfly. Just be aware not to breathe the dust in, because MDF dust is not good for you. You can put a mask on while you do this if you want. If you get little bits that are just stuck on like that, you can just snip them off. And sometimes if I've got tiny little bits that won't sand, I get a nail file just to go in between. So there we are, that's our butterfly. I'll probably gesso him, but what I could also do instead, in fact I'll try this first, is I've got some pink Victorian Velvet Distress ink, and I'll just get a sponge and I'll just ink my butterfly up in pink. This just gives it a bit more of a vintage sort of a vibe, and it takes the starkness of the text away. And the edges will take more pink than the other areas. Yeah, I like that, and I think that goes with my colour scheme really well. So I'll do my others. I'll turn the camera off while I just cut out, sand and ink my butterflies up, and while I cut the rest of these out, because you don't need to see me sand, just fussy cutting. My tags, I will do the same as I did with my butterflies, just roughly cut round them and then sand them, and then I'll probably ink the edges with Vintage Photo. So same again, same principle. Where I have the hole, I tend to get a pencil. Well, I get a scissors first and go a little hole through so I know where the middle is. Put my pencil in and do that, and if you twist it round, it pushes the paper in there. You can then put a bit of glue and just make sure it sticks in there, and I will put a little hole enforcer round it, probably inked in Vintage Photo again. So I'll do all my cutting and sanding and then I'll come back. Alright, so we've got all our little postcards cut out. We've scuffed the edges, distressed the edges and inked them up with Vintage Photo ink. I've done the same with all the little postage stamps, but I haven't done these with distress ink because I quite like the fact that they were pale. So I'll just distress that one a bit more. There we are. I've got my two tags, which I've actually, while I was doing the rest of the fussy cutting and sanding, I covered the back just with some tea stained paper. So both backs have been covered, and I've put the pencil through the holes so that I've got the holes clear. I've got these hole reinforcers which I buy in a box, and they are paper, so make sure that when you buy them you buy the paper ones because they ink up, whereas the plastic ones, unless you use stays-on ink, don't. So I've just got some Vintage Photo Distress ink. This is a Stampers Anonymous Tim Holtz stamp. It's quite a small script stamp which I like. And what I do is I just put some scrap paper underneath, and then I don't stamp onto my desk and get it on the back of my project. just stamp onto the whole reinforcers, and it gives them a little bit more interest. Just needs a bit more at that side, that's it. That's that. I'll just make sure those are dry before I pop them on. I'm going to ink the edges of my tags in Vintage Photo. I could have done them with peeled paint, which matches this colour, but I quite like a vintage look, so I want Vintage Photo instead, because it gives them a little bit more aged and worn look. Just do it like around the edges and then the same on the back. My makeup sponge is getting very old. I need to replace it. So you see, we're just getting a little bit of age, more aged look, and I tend to concentrate on the corners. And again, do the same on the back. All the way around. There we are. And then that's dry. I'll just dab a little bit of ink onto the top, just to dull them down a bit. Better wipe my surface or else I'll get it on the back of my tags. Should have done it on my scrap again. So then all you need to do is peel these off. They come on the backing and pop them just round the hole. They're just a little bit less boring, more interesting with the text on, especially on the back that's fairly plain. It over. There we are. So you've got your reinforcers done. I've got this little bit of distressed linen, which I quite like. Just wondering about tying it round my tag before I start decorating. Might do that. Just get it a little bit higher. This is just linen and it's just been tea stained. Work the end a bit and then it doesn't look quite so cut. That's it, just a few wispy bits. I quite like that, it gives it a little bit more something. We may end up covering that up, but we'll see. You might move it further towards the edge. So it's almost on the edge. Yeah, quite like that. So that's a start on our tag. Let's see. Now I've got my little butterfly, which we inked up before with the Victorian Velvet ink. Scrap paper again. And I know this dictionary page isn't really scrap. What I'll probably do is use it for a masterboard later. Come a bit further up so you can see a bit better. So I've just added Victorian velvet onto the top of the dictionary pages. Could do this with whatever colour you were theming your tag to. And then I've got some gesso. This is PBO gesso. And I don't want a lot on my brush. This is what I call my glue brush. It's a very rough brush. And I don't want very much gesso on it at all. I'm almost wiping it off. I've just got a little bit from the top. Just wipe it off a little bit on the paper. And then I'm just going to lightly, you can see, dry brush across my butterfly. It just gives it a little bit more visual texture, and it just stops it being quite so in your face, I suppose. It makes it more vintagey looking. If you run out of gesso, just dab a little bit more from the lid of your gesso, work it off, and then go back. And it picks up nicely on the edges. It picks the gesso up on the edges nicely. When they aren't floating about. There we are. So, brush into the water. So we've got our distressed butterflies. We've got our original large tag, we've got the small one. I'm not sure if I'm going to put any of that round the small one. I suppose I could see if I can cut it in half to make a little bit narrow one. Actually, I like the one with this raggedy edges better. Tie that round. Oops. Make sure it's at the edge. I'll leave those on for now. I might need to cut them off. In fact, I think I will. They are just a little bit too long. That's it. What I want is all these frayed bits. Distressed and frayed. That's it. Oops. Put them frayed bits round the front. Right, so we've got our base, we've got our butterflies, our postcards. Now there's these journaling cards. Quite like that. But what we could do is tuck it behind there. That would be quite nice. This one's too big, but if I cut it in half, I'll fold it first and see. Yeah, that looks quite nice. I can decide which half I want. Yeah, I think that'll be quite nice. So what I'll do is I'll distress the edges. This has just got a little bit that wants to come off on the top. So distress my edges again. I don't mind if I nick it in a couple of places, because it adds more interest. And I am going to add some vintage photo to this as well. So I've got some vintage photo. Curl the edges in a little bit. Where you curl the edges in, don't forget to just ink them up. So when they're curled in and you see the back looks distressed as well. This is why I didn't glue my linen down, because I can work things in behind it. I need to just ink this a little bit. There we are. I'll just do the corners. I'm going to curl the corners up. There we are. I think we'll have it fairly high up. Right, so we'll have that at an angle. That one at an angle. So we've got our little postcards. That's quite a pretty one. I think they're too big for on there. I don't think I can really cut one in half. But on here, it will be quite ideal to go there. And I've got my little tea cards. And again, they might be too large for going on this one. We'll see. Oh, it might just about. See which other one will go on. I might go for a touch of blue. I think we'll go over the top. So we'll do that with foam pads. Right, so if we go the opposite way, we go that way with that, down there, and then we can put our butterfly. It's just a matter of playing about until you get it right. No, I think that wants to be there. That wants to be over the top. Ah, yes, that's the way we need it. Have that like that. That tucked in there. The little one up there. Almost covering that one, I think. Yeah. this on here, and our big butterfly there. And then I can just dot some of these about if I wish. That's the upside down. One there. And have this the right way up. One in there. And I don't mind if I overlap the edges. That's quite big on there, but I do quite like it. So I think maybe that one would, yeah, that one's a bit too small. Right, so I think I'm going to glue those down, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of crackle paste in some areas. So I'm just going to use PVA from the majority of the things, and then some foam tape just behind here. So I'll just pop those off for a moment, and the butterfly. I can glue that one down. My PVA works. Just in that corner there. And then I can lift this up, put glue on the back. That out for a second. Because our little bit of linen will help secure things as well, I don't need to put masses of glue on. I think that one on there. And I could put more foam pads on, but I think it's fine as it is. And this is my extra strong PVA, so it will be strong enough to hold my MDF pieces on as well. Yeah, I think that needs to be on foam tape there. And our butterfly here. I'll probably use gel medium for our butterflies just so I know that it's stuck on. So I'll stick these on first. Come on, behave yourself. That's that one there. Being over the edge. Just wondering whether I should have that on foam tape. I actually quite like that one tucked behind there, and I'm not bothered if it's raised up, so what I'm going to do is just pop it on with PVA just at an angle like that. And then our big butterfly will go on with gel medium, probably there. Right. So I'll just get my foam tape, which I seem to have lost. Right, so I've got my foam tape now. So I'm just going to put a couple of bits behind this. And I don't think I really need to ink the edges up. I'll just do a little tiny bit. Just occasionally. It's a little bit older. So I think we had it about there. And then we're going to have our butterfly here somewhere. Yeah. So that's all stuck, that's all stuck. Right, gel medium. This is DecoArt heavy gel medium, just because it's what I happen to have to hand. And I use it for all my, anything that's needs to be stuck that might come off. I use it for metal, plastic, anything like that. It is very, very good stuff. So I think we'll go there with that. Oh, we've already put that one on. And we'll go there with that one. There we are. It isn't an instant gram, isn't heavy gel medium or gel medium. You've got a little bit of wiggle room. Just remember to put your spatula or whatever straight into water, because once it's on it won't come off. So I've got this far with my tags. I think I need a little bit of crackle paste. So what I'm going to do, I tend to use my fingers because I find it much easier to control. But I've got a wet wipe ready for getting it off my fingers. So this again is DecoArt. And I love this stuff. And I'm just going to put it in certain areas. I'm not going to put it everywhere. And I can go onto my paper bits as well, and I just sort of blob it around, go a little bit further down onto there. You can go on the edges if you want, and it will pick up, if you've got distress ink, it will pick up the colour of the distress ink, which is really quite nice. I tend to do it on corners because I think that's where things distress more. A little bit up there. And the thinner you put it on, the finer the cracks will be. Don't want it on my cloth, so I'll just get it off there. Right. I'll have some on this one as well. Get rid of my threads, I don't want it on my threads. Let's go on that corner and a little bit up here. And it looks very white at the moment. As I say, you can see here it's picking up the colour of the distress ink underneath it. But also, once it is completely dry, I tend to put a little bit of distress ink on the top, and I could go with Vintage Photo, or I could go with the green, which pale paint matches quite nicely. So that's nice because then it would tie in with the green colour, and it's not quite so obvious then that you've added it later. It just looks part of your design. So I'll pop those away to dry, and then I'll show you when they're finished. Just add in the distress ink to the crackle paste and any other little bits I think that I need to finish them off. Right, so we've got our tags finished. The crackle paste has dried nicely and crackled. There, and across here and across here. I did add a little bit of peeled paint distressing with a sponge, just very lightly on it, just across the areas where the crackle paste is, just like that. And then I added a little bit of Vintage Photo after that as well. I'll just do it again so you can see how it makes it. That makes it nice and green. And then for a vintage look, I just added a little bit of brown as well. So you can see that just finishes the crackle paste off. It just highlights it, makes it blend in rather than being very white. I did add a couple of rusty paper clips, one here and one there, and also some rusty tacks in the centre of the bodies of the butterflies. The tops, this one has got twine as well as some tea stained ribbon. It's cotton ribbon. And then this one has got twine and then some of the distressed and ripped cotton, which was tea stained. Which you remember, this was the cotton fabric that had tea stained. This is the tea stained cotton ribbon. I think it's something like seam binding or something like that, but it's cotton and it's quite thick. So that just finished our 2 tags off. I attached the tacks with gel medium again because they're metal and PVA sometimes doesn't hold them strong enough. So I hope you like those.